If you can JAPA. And when you look at immigration and the JAPA situation, the first thing I also want to say is that for you to be able to JAPA, there is some form or a level of resources that you already have. Either you're a professional at what you're doing, or you're a student and someone is going to be paying from it. So there's a level of resources that's going to be going from Africa because of you, right, and immigrating to this country to contribute to their society, right? The fact is, there's going to be obvious challenges, right? This is not a situation where you're going in to exploit anybody. That's not going to happen in this case, most probably. Hello, and welcome to another episode of New Day, Same B.S. My name is CT, and for today's episode, I wanted to look at a concept in Nigeria called JAPA. If you've heard this before, basically what JAPA really means, JAPA means basically the act of moving from one country to another country in search of greener pastures or just a better living situation. Very common from developing to developed countries. And for this scenario, I just wanted to talk about some of the intricacies or some of the nuances of JAPA. First things first, JAPA is not a new thing. It has always happened in history. Humans would always look for better opportunities or new places to go and, find better opportunities when where they are is not necessarily working out. It has always happened. If you read the Bible, the Israelites did it, wandered around the wilderness and deserts and stuff, and went from place to place, immigrating basically, looking and until or to find a place that they would settle. Colonizers in Africa did the same thing. It's basically another JAPA story in a different light. But the act of immigrating from one situation or from one place to another has never been new to mankind. It's a survival thing, so human beings would always do it. So when I'm looking at JAPA today, the first thing that wanted to say is, obviously there are basically two types of JAPA, right? Like the one I'm talking about is usually developing countries to developed countries, but historically, a form of it sometimes can be the act of actually moving to a different location on land and basically exploiting and taking over, or whatever the case might be, that land. And for people trying to JAPA or trying to immigrate in this situation to better situations. It could be war, it could be different economic situations. One thing you need to understand, and I will use Africa in general as an example. If you're immigrating from Africa and stuff like that, and you're going to the Western countries, Europe and stuff like that, the fact is there's going to be obvious challenges, right? This is not a situation where you're going in to exploit anybody. That's not going to happen in this case, most probably. But in a situation like this, you just have to understand that you would need to climb your way and work hard. Basically, in your new situation, they already got the way of doing things, so they would expect you to get in line, which is what it is. Also, in the JAPA scenario, you shouldn't expect them necessarily to trust you. I think this is something that is not really talked about. When you immigrate, I know some messed up things also, things like this happen in South Africa and stuff like that, with the whole xenophobia. But in the core part of it, when you immigrate, the people in the home country or whatever usually would not trust you. And one of the reasons that is most often than not, there's a history, like I mentioned, whether you look at the Bible and colonizers and stuff like that, or wars and stuff, there's a history of people actually moving into other people's location and actually exploiting or taking over that location by force or whatever the case might be, or slowly or something like that. So there's already a history of that. So you do not expect where you're going to for them to just trust you or roll out the red carpet for you. There is a little bit of cynicism and concern that most of those places, especially European countries or Americas and stuff like that, would have about your immigration, right? And a real reason, or one of the major reasons they have these concerns, is because most often than not, they know how they basically, if you look at the history, they understand how they actually got the land and stuff like that. And it also has to do with immigration. So there's always that concern that you're coming to add to them rather than to come exploit or become a problem in their land. So that would always be that tension. But at the end of the day, it's something mankind has always done. If you provide value, you would find a place somewhere on earth. As a result of the JAPA situation, one thing I wanted to talk about as well is the brain drain going on in Africa, right? So brain drain is basically where the best and the brightest of Africa is recruited by more developed countries. So what happens is the more the continent produces whether knowledge or talent, right? Great minds in education or whatever the case might be, there is always that ability to recruit them to a better scenario. So which means in an African context, it's very difficult to keep the best and brightest because they get paid better, they get better conditions and recruited by more developed countries to help their countries grow. So Africa is going through, basically, I think it's always going to be a thing, a brain drain. And when you look at immigration and the JAPA situation, the first thing I also want to say is that for you to be able to JAPA, there is some form or a level of resources that you already have. Either you're a professional at what you're doing or you're a student and someone is going to be paying from it. So there's a level of resources that's going to be going from Africa because of you, right? And immigrating to this country to contribute to their society, right? So brain drain is always going to be a problem because these developed countries can offer more for the best and the brightest as well. But even if it's a big thing that is going on and actually limiting the growth in terms of human resources, there is also a bright and a good side to it. When you look at countries like China and other countries that in recent times economies have done well, there is always that ability to learn from the people a little ahead of you in technology or whatever the case might be and kind of apply it. We all know China products, right? You know, a lot of times the quality wasn't that good, but now they're competing in terms of quality and so many other things with the rest of the world. So what happens is with a brain drain, there's also a chance that these talented and skilled people can actually become a resource, right, for their countries or for Africa and stuff like that. If you look at it that way, but this only depends on if these people immigrating are willing to contribute to the continent of Africa. So I think JAPA, it's a big conversation. If you can JAPA, JAPA. But you know, as they always say, right, there's no place like home, and those things that you learn and those sacrifices that you make going to other countries can also be used to improve Africa. You can just learn and be able to do what they've done, but most importantly, you can actually make it way better than it actually is. So for everyone that is thinking of JAPA, but always understand as well that the sacrifices and challenges is a lot. But at the end of the day, those resources can also have a net positive impact if the people are willing to actually do a little bit more and actually use at least their talent, their skills, and all they've acquired to give back to the continent. If you have gotten here, I appreciate you. Thank you so much. Don't forget to subscribe, like, comment, share, follow the social media pages, and peace.